All right, live. So, welcome everyone to this Elan panel discussion live stream. Today we have Michael J. Sullivan, Robin Sullivan, and Lorian Ellis. And, and then we also have a room full of audience members, and as well as some questions from Discord and Reddit. And the YouTube chat is also open for questions. Before we start, just a spoiler warning that we will potentially be discussing spoilers for all the books currently out in Elan, which is why we have this spoiler banner. But without further ado, let's get started with our first question.
Hello. So this is a question for Robin Sullivan. I wanted to ask, what inspired you to make the Elan Discord and then subsequently all the other Discords?
So, I'm an old person, as you can tell, and I don't know nothing about no technology. But I did run across, I did run across the others Ryera Discord, and I went, "Wow, this is like really cool." But I felt very self-conscious to like go in there and like step all over whoever was there. So I said, maybe I should make our own Discord. And although we don't have as many members as as the Ryera Discord, we at least have a little small base. And I also thought it would be really cool. I do use Discord for beta reads and gamma reads, and it's really cool because it allows people to kind of talk to each other while they're doing those reads. But I really thought it was cool that as people read the books, they could kind of like join in, especially when new releases happen.
All right. Our next question comes from Reddit, and it's kind of a long one here. How was Gutaria prison created? How was time being stopped? And what exactly did Ezrahaddon do to the prison? I assume that he had around 900 years to prepare the counterspell, and that is why he was able to break the spell without hands. Is any of that correct?
Oh, it's going to be me? Okay, can you break this down first? What's the first part of the question?
How was Gutaria prison created?
I'm afraid I'm going to have to say that's a spoiler. That will be explained.
All right. How was time being stopped?
Same deal.
And lastly, was Ezrahaddon able to break the spell just because he had so much time since he didn't have any hands?
No.
He had some
He used no magic whatsoever. If you paid attention to the book, you'd actually know this.
He used-
The point, it literally says that the people who ran the prison forgot their own runes. He read the runes on the wall and understood that if the ruler of that area were to set him free, it would break the spell. So he did nothing.
Oh, except for lure Ulrich to his prison, so that
Well, yes, he. Actually, some of this is actually coming up in an upcoming book, so I'm not going to go too much
Oh.
detail about that.
I didn't.
Oh, no, what you said's fine. You don't know anything. You haven't read the book.
I don't know that.
So that's fine.
I know nothing.
This is the good part about this interview. Neither of these people can spoil anything, really. She could, but she knows not to go there. You have such a pretty face. So that's not going to happen. So, yes, the first two are going to be addressed probably in something about her book. Will probably where you find that. And the last one, of course, I could answer. I'm sorry. Back row, could you please stand up and bring your question? What?
Didn't he inverse the spell, though, to flip it so everyone else inside was frozen and they could walk freely? So how did he do that?
So to explain that, I would have to explain how the prison actually does what it does. And when I say it'll be explained in a later book, that is code for I haven't done that yet. So I actually can't answer the question because I haven't figured that part out. But trust me, I'll come up with something.
All right. This next question also comes from Reddit. At the end of Fairlane, Muriel sends a whole blizzard of feathers to Turin. Does this represent Muriel finally giving Turin full forgiveness, even though she is still sending feathers in Revelations?
Obviously not. because she's still sending feathers in Revelations. Yeah, so we know that he has not been forgiven for all sins, and therefore he's like, it's over. No. This has been a point of contention for several people. They seem to misinterpret it. I believe Ryan had the correct answer for this, and he came to the closest. On Discord, he had posted a conclusion which was really quite accurate. And the concept was that Muriel is telling Turin, you did good. He doesn't believe it because he doesn't want to accept credit for what he did. So she's like, no, really, another feather. And he's like, I don't want to hear this right now. No, seriously, you did good. Leave me the blank alone. He doesn't want anything positive from this horrible thing that he did, and he recognizes that, and he doesn't want it to happen. So she's like really trying to drum him, no, you really did good. And the fact that you won't pick up a feather is even worse, because that makes it even better that you're learning the answer to this question. So she's just showering him and letting him know how great he did. She's actually kind of trying to cheer him up because he did a really good thing, and that's what that's all about. But other people have different interpretations, and you can have those. I don't care. It's your book. Once you buy it, you have it.
This question is from Michael. Are there any characters whom we, the readers, believe are human, but actually have at least a drop of blood?
You're asking, are there some people walking around who I have not told you are hybrids? Again, that's going to be kind of maybe, because not that I'm bringing to mind, no. I probably would tell you if they were there, but people have asked me what is in the Westerlands, and I haven't the slightest clue. That doesn't mean there's nothing in the Westerlands. If I put I didn't know what was in Alburn until I started writing Winter's Daughter. That was something that I had a really vague idea of until I built it. I didn't have there. So to answer your question, and most of these questions, if it's not something I've actually created, it's on hold, and I could build something into it, but maybe I'll never get to that. So at the moment, there's nothing hidden that I'm going to spring on you. No. Right.
In reserve for a surprise later.
That's correct.
So this is another question from Michael. In Age of Swords, when they're in the Agave and they find the story of Trilos on the tablets, and there's the story about how the dwarves learned copper from him, then they left him there, and they came back and they learned bronze, and then they came back and they learned iron. I'm wondering, how long were the dwarves stringing him along? Was this a few weeks and they came back and asked for something else, or was this over hundreds of years that they were leaving him down there and coming back and asking for more?
It would apply about a course of decades. That was a very easy and quick, succinct question. Thank you.
Hello. This is another question for Robin. Over the course of 20-ish years of Raya fandom, has there been any significant changes in the fandom from your perspective?
In the fandom? Well, the fandom exists. I mean,
That's a nice positive change.
That's a nice positive change. I mean, originally, in 2007, I mean, we were just lucky that we'd get one review and go, "Wow, that's cool." So I guess there is something that I should explain, because in the very old days, and by old days I mean 2007 to 2008, we used to go to conventions, and they were excruciating experiences, because we would sit in the dealer's room and nobody knew who Michael was, and it was just 3 days of sheer boredom and depression, and why are we even doing this? A couple years ago, my daughter and I went to Dragonsteel Nexus. Michael couldn't attend that particular Dragonsteel Nexus, and all these people came up and said, "Oh, I came here just to see Michael. Oh, I came here just to see Michael. Where is he? Where is he?" And I was like, "Well, unfortunately, he's at home. He couldn't come." And I came back and I told Mike, and I said, "It's really quite different when you go to conventions now." And he said, "I don't believe you."
That's exactly what.
What did you say?
There was
Oh yeah.
Full something.
Yes. And then I convinced him, twisted his arm to go to the next Dragonsteel Nexus, and he saw for himself that people really do know who he is. So that was great. I will say that we still have yet to see a sighting in the wild of someone reading Michael's books, where we can go up and say, you know, we've seen it. Although recently we got a fan mail from someone who was in Aruba and claimed that there were people everywhere on the beach in Aruba reading his books, which I'm not so convinced of, but they seem to think.
And I just like to say for the studio or the audience who's viewing this online that you cannot see it, but there's hundreds of thousands of people out in front of me right now. See, you can hear that. It's just I can't even see all of them. Some of them are going over the hill. So
It's a major rally.
All right. We have a couple questions from the live chat. First question, will Fairlane ever meet Kyle again?
will they ever meet?
Well, I guess it says, will Kyle ever see Fairlane again?
Oh, so he has to have eyes. Again, who asked this question?
That's Yasmin.
Who?
Yasmin.
Okay. You should have known in advance that was one I wasn't going to answer. No, I'm not going to answer that one, but I will give you this much, that there will be some explanation of that situation, that it goes far beyond the end of Fairlane. You will get some type of closure, but I'm not going to give you any more than that.
And then the next question, will Tim be coming back to narrate the future books?
Nothing but death will stop him. And I say that literally. Tim is a huge fan. We obviously have full control over who gets to narrate the books these days, and we would never, ever abandon Tim. He is the voice of Elan. He has always been the voice of Elan, and he will be the voice of Elan for as long as he will permit us to do so.
Because we've got pictures.
We do. We do have some blackmail on him.
Yes, he'll definitely work for us.
That will make him work for us.
Now, Tim and I we're very good friends with Tim, and he loves us, and
we love him.
He makes time for us. If he's booked, he'll find his place for us. So he will definitely be recording them, and we'll not do anyone else.
I'll also say that, from a purely financial standpoint, we do a lot, and I mean a lot, to make sure that Tim is compensated at the very top of the narrator game. And so even if he hated us, he would probably want to do it, because we've done a lot to increase his pays over the years. And he used to be very, very low paid, and now he is extremely high paid.
And unless he's lying, he's a fan. So
yeah, very much so.
Okay, so there's a lot of interest in the weapons of Elan, one of which is Czech Chin's sword, which I believe has been told to have been made of stone and metal. The question is, in future books, will we see how that was executed in the past, or possibly come into play in the future books?
I actually kind of answered that to some degree in, what was it? Receptacus, where they're in the inn in Rattleboro, and then Magnus is literally discussing how the process was done. So there's a little bit of explanation of how that actually came about. So that part is already kind of out there to some degree now. Obviously, it's a secondhand opinion. Maybe that didn't really happen, which could be part of the question. But for the most part, I kind of already did that. And what I think is the actual problem is that people are wondering, is there something extra special about this sword other than just being a elven sword that was made? And there's probably going to be more to that. And of course, I'm not going to explain that, but yes. But a lot of that was told you by Magnus is pretty darn close to being true.
Well, I was asked something about this yesterday, and you're not going to tell me the whole thing, and I don't expect that, but I just want to make sure that I'm interpreting things correctly. So at the end of Drumendor, there is a lot of talk of wolves and moons and howling. That's not an accident, correct? I mean that.
I meant to type those words.
Would you care to elaborate at all on that?
So in the Dwarven calendar, there is a month called the Wolf. And there is this large white disk at night that rises called the moon.
Well, that explains everything.
All right, we have a couple more questions from the YouTube chat. Do we know if Royce has ever killed another mirror?
We do know that. And the answer to that is no. He's never killed a mirror. Just who said yes? No. Well, technically the question was misphrased. You said another mirror. Technically, the question should have been, has he ever killed another person who's a Frey? And there is no. They have Frey blood, but they're not considered Frey in the overall sense of being part of that community. So he's never killed another Frey. Yes, of course, he's killed Mir, and he's killed people of that nature, but he's never actually killed a Frey. And for those who have no idea what I'm talking about, it means that people like Thrannik, who he killed, who were Mir, had already been disavowed by their god because of the fact that they had already killed a person or a Mir or a Frey, and therefore they were free to. You can kill those people freely. There's no repercussions brought on by that. So yes and no, correct.
In other words, Royce's soul is still intact.
That was brought out in the book because if he had had anything happen to him, you would have known about it because he would have known.
When writing Legends of the Empire, did you look into the different bronze alloys like arsenic bronze and bronze when making like
Black bronze?
Yeah, just like the swords, the weapons, taking that information into account?
Yes, that's how I came up with the black bronze sword that was eventually going to be used with Wraith. That was a situation where, yes, I did do research. I do research. It's a wonderful thing. If you've never heard of it, it's a great place you can go. It's called the intranet. And it has a lot of answers. And many of it, I would actually go to YouTube and literally witness people who were doing it in the old-fashioned style, casting bronze, casting things. Like, they would actually go out and dig it up. They would make a gigantic fire. They would form a forge out of stone, and they bury the thing for a day. It's pretty elaborate, and how they folded the metal and stuff like that. So, yeah, so I did a lot of research into that. And the one I thought the most interesting one was black bronze, because of the name sounded really cool. The other thing that you have certain metals that you have to add to it, which was what added into the scene, which you see in Age of War, where they're trying to make the sword and everyone has to contribute parts. So all that worked together for my plot, and that's why I chose that one.
In the short story of May Luck Be With You, do you have a date for it?
I have a date for what?
The short story. Do you know how old Royce is?
Oh, yeah.
Care to share?
But the problem is that I can't, because I don't actually know mentally. I could go up and check. But no, I mean, I know the date of anyone, but he's fairly young. I don't know exactly what the age is. I'd have to look it up, unfortunately. And it's all the way up the stairs. No, he's much older than that. You know? Okay. So if you didn't hear that, he was 15. Are you telling me I didn't actually put that in the... Oh, you read it, so you would know. Okay. Oh, so I didn't have the story. That's bad on me.
Not in the story.
Hello, for Michael. You have lovingly opened up your home for us for this convention.
Wouldn't say lovingly, but...
Okay. You have begrudgingly?
I had no choice, as a lot of you.
And I've noticed that there's a lot of like fun Rhaenyra or Elan theme things, and I know a bunch of them are like fan gifts. Do you have a favorite fan gift?
Ooh, that was...
No. But we have done what I would like to bring up. We have a beautiful stained glass up here, which everyone can be seeing. They did a lot of work, did a fantastic job. This thing behind me, if you're looking above my head, you'll see a plaque that was done. Someone spent a lot of time and effort putting that together, and of course, it's a great quote. Not my favorite, but damn close. There are a lot of people love that quote, which I like that. We also have, there's a image in my office that was done, I think it was on cloth,
I think
right?
it was,
Sailcloth, which is a, yes.
I think,
Yeah, and that was a beautiful piece. And so, I mean, people have done some really wonderful things, but those are the ones that obviously are right here I can look at. So if I didn't mention yours, it doesn't mean I didn't like it. And then, of course, there's the wonderful Sylvia Foyle, who probably, it may be in the top spot. She gave me a bottle of liquor that is extremely rare and extremely good. So
of wooden puzzles, which bring me no end of enjoyment.
good.
Right. For Michael, so in the group that goes down into Persepolis, there's the big guy Eldon, and there's a scene where he gives Arista a figurine of her, and she remarks like, when did he have time to make this? And I'm wondering if he made that in the same way that Nevrik made the figurine for Ezra Hodden.
I honestly have no idea. It's very good. It's a very good possibility, but I'm not sure we'll ever find the answer to that question in particular. But yeah, if that makes you happier, go right ahead and believe it.
Fair enough.
Is the magic that Turin does the same as the art?
You've never seen Turn do magic, I don't think, in any of my books. So that almost is a non-applicable question. There is magic which he possesses, and believe it or not, that is a spoiler. So I'm not going to explain that one too much. But you've never actually seen Turin use magic, I don't think. Eric's going to be sitting in the back row, and he's going to be going, well, excuse me. In episode 5,
I mean, he does have foreknowledge, so that's a kind of magic.
it's not the art, if you're thinking about that, but that's not it. No, he's never used the art, to my knowledge, in any of the books. But there is something more that will come later. If I live long enough to tell you, everyone well wish me.
We do have another question from chat. When will Lorian's books be available on Kickstarter?
Yeah, Robin. Don't know exactly yet. So my Kickstarters have run longer than I would like them to, and a lot of that has to do with me being a bottleneck for things. So my approach for all Kickstarters going forward is I'm not going to launch a Kickstarter until I have the book completely finished and ready to hit go with the printer. So in that way, once the Kickstarter is over, I'll know exactly how many copies I need to order. I can tell the printer that, and we can start the presses rolling. If I do that, then the amount of time between the end of the Kickstarter and when we can start shipping is only going to be, maybe 4 months, because it takes me at least that amount of time for that. So there are many pieces that I always have to put in place. The first is to get the book 100% completed, which I'm happy to say it is. The second is for me to do the alpha read, which I have done. Almost done. I'm on chapter 20, so I'm pretty close to the end. I have already started doing the first copy edit, and the beta read is scheduled for August 1st through the 29th. The copy editor is scheduled for October 6th through October 28th. and then Tim is scheduled to record it from, doing this off of memory, I think it's June 3rd through the 20th of 2026. So he is the holdup. Okay. Now, whether I put the book out before he does the recording or not, I don't know. Historically, we have kind of waited because sometimes Tim will say something just a little bit different than what's on the page. He'll sometimes like reverse 2 words, or he'll drop a word, or he'll add in a word. And typically, when that has happened, we have actually changed the text of the book because we understand that whatever he was saying, it just flows better. The mere fact that he did that slight change, it was just a better flow. Whether I'm going to wait that extended period of time in order to put the book on the press, I don't know yet. But given all that, there's no way you're going to see it in this year. It will be a 2026 launching because I won't have the copy editing done until the very late end of December of 2025. Yeah. So Drumador's hardcover is already being sold. Its release date is August 5th. We will have Out of the Ashes in 2026, and hopefully we'll have Blythe and Castle in 2027.
This question's for Michael. Do you have a favorite line or quote in your books?
No. Go ahead.
He is dirt. He is pig. He is pig and dirt.
He loves that line because she wrote it.
Love that line. Only line I wrote that Mike said.
As you can tell, it's very eloquent. I mean, there are many lines. I have a lot that I really like, and what is good, and I've forgotten them. I mean, I've written quite a few words. So, but it's really nice that when I'm reading a review and someone writes to me and says, "I really liked your book, and I specifically liked this," and I'm like, "Wow, someone got it." Because when you're writing, you're thinking, "I really like that. I wonder if anyone will notice." And of course they don't. I mean, they just tell you they like the book, but you didn't see what it was specifically that they liked. So when they point something out, you're like, "Really? You like that?" But if they hit on something that you thought was really good and you think no one will ever notice, and they specifically say that was great, that does make you feel really pretty good. So there have been a few times when people have done that, one of which is the line very early on in Avampartha, wherein I think it's Ezra tells Arista the whole thing about, sharks don't eat seafood because they want to, but because chickens don't swim. I thought that was a very clever line. I was very proud of that. And when no one mentioned it, I was kind of bummed. But eventually someone did actually bring that up. I'm like, yes, someone noticed that sentence. So there are certain sentences and things. And recently there was one that someone brought up. And I hadn't really thought it, but out of context, it was when Hadrian is talking to Royce at the end of the, what was it? The end of the first book, The Crown Tower. And Royce is wondering whether or not Hadrian is going to buckle because they're dire straits now, and he's seen people who just can't handle the pressure. And earlier on, he was talking about when he was terrorizing Colnora, that people were so frightened of him that they hid. And on the very luxurious and affluent street of Heath Street, that the people would, close their shutters and lock them up because they were terrified that they would be attacked. So when he looks at Hadrian to see if he's going to, survive, and he says, I think the line is, he looked at his eyes and he saw that the shutters were wide open in that house on Heath Street. It was an eloquent way of putting it. I'm actually saying it wrong. It was much better how I wrote it originally. But I like that someone found that, and I didn't actually think of that as being a super great line, but it was many, many years ago that I wrote it. So when they did say it, I was like, yeah, that is a pretty darn good line. So yeah, I don't have too many that are standing. There's nothing I'm like, oh, this is the best I ever wrote. No, there's nothing like that.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, so for Michael, as you mentioned, Revelations was written a really long time ago. Is there anything in Revelations that you wish you could change after writing Legends and Rise and Fall?
Just about everything. No. After writing Rise and Fall, yes, there are many things that I wish I could have. Famously, probably the most obvious one has actually had to do with writing the Chronicles after having written Revelations, which is the fact that I said that Hadrian never met Leopold Hargrave. That was a huge problem because as I was outlining the book, Winter's Daughter, I expected, I outlined it so that Royce and Hadrian would end up meeting and actually saving Leopold's life. Didn't happen in the book because that partway through it, I went, uh-oh. I happened to go back and reread part of it, and I happened to see the line where Hadrian literally says, I've never seen, I mean, it's like, there's no way around this. I can't fudge it. He literally says, I've never seen this guy. I'm like going, so I had to rewrite the whole thing to make sure that those two don't meet.
I have one. I have long hoped for or wished for or prayed for a director's cut of Rhaenyra where it could be redone this many 12 years later, 15 years later, however long it's been, that can adjust for things that came up later. And a prime example of that is the Emerald Storm and when Royce and Hadrian go to Drumendor. Because when I read Drumendor, I loved the setting. I loved the various characters from that. Of course, much of that did not exist when he wrote Emerald Storm. I mean, at that time, Drumendor and Tour de Fur was just a little city, and there wasn't all this stuff that had happened. So I would really like to see Wintertide rewritten, knowing now what they knew about various characters they met. Obviously Pickles would come to mind. Obviously, I'm going to say this wrong. The dwarf, Arberon. They would think about him. They would be thinking about the blue parrot and how it's going to be destroyed. So there's just certain things that they would be internalizing that would be making the dire straits that's happening in Wintertide more dramatic. But at the time, there wasn't that. And then it would also be able to fix things because I believe in Wintertide, the dwarf is crushed by a gear, and not how he goes out. So I would just love to have kind of a director's edit that takes into account things that were learned later that, I guess the term that people use is retcon, is that things have changed, and I would like to have them all align.
I just like to say that given the things that were foreshadowed, totally at random, that came to fruition, I think I did pretty good with those.
All right, another question from chat. Why are Mir described as being short when Frey are usually described as being tall?
I could be the fact that I can't be positive, but I'm assuming there weren't too many Frey meeting humans, so those are probably relative to Frey seeing Frey. But all Frey and Mir would be shorter than humans. And they're just generally a little smaller. But I don't know if if I described Frey as being tall, I don't think it was generally in reference to a human being. But I'm not positive of that. There's a lot of words. Maybe I screwed up. It's possible. Yeah, oh, you're right.
So thinking about the fact that Trilos was not a character when you wrote Revelations, as you wrote the later series, have you looked back at Revelations and found places where you think Trilos may have had some influence?
This is a thing I think that's been going around, hasn't it? I see a lot of guilty faces in this audience, yes. They're wondering where was basically Trilos during the years of Revelations. I know where he is. I know where he was. He does not appear in Revelations. Sorry.
But knew of him.
I knew of Ulrich, yes. There was a character named Ulrich who was a very powerful individual who was obviously much more powerful in magic than even Ezra Hodden. We all know that. But that was about as much as I knew at the time. In fact, I had a totally different background story. I talked about this in Rhaenyra Unveiled. We know that I had a plan for something, but I didn't actually think I would ever have to actually reveal it, so I didn't put a lot of effort into it. That's what I'm talking about. Unless I put my mind to it, it may not exist, but if it does, it may also change.
This is a question for Lorian. Do you have a favorite character in Elan? And if you can say, do you get to write them?
My favorite character is Royce, and no, he hasn't been born yet. Unfortunately.
So, of the characters in your book, who is your favorite?
Well, it's Neverick. I mean, Neverick is an ancestor of Royce. What are you gonna do? So Rhoda is a new character, and she's a lot of fun to write. But and I would say Rhoda and Neverick are both equally fun to write. But I needed to pick one, so.
Another question from chat. This is for both Michael and Lorian. Do you have a specific writing routine, and how long did it take you to develop that?
The way it usually went was I would go ahead and work on, say, a chapter, and I would send it over to Michael, and he would go ahead and mark it up and say, this needs to change, this is working, that isn't working, send it back. So it would just go back and forth until everything was fixed.
Kind of like, do you write in the morning? Do you write in the evening? Do you get up? That type of thing.
All right, I understand. No, I don't have a routine. I just write whenever I can, which is usually most of the day.
Know from interactions with her that in her case, she is where I was a long time ago before I was making any money. So in her case, it was like wherever she has time and space and can get away from people that are very distracting, that's what she did. There were times when she would say, like, I'm like, where are you now? She says, well, I'm in a closet right now because the rest of the house is really cold because there's no heat over there and someone's over here bothering me. So she's just trying any way she can to find a place and a time to write. And she would write at all hours, I would think, right?
Yeah. I know that when I send you Discord messages, you're like almost always responding very quickly. So it seems like you're on a lot.
She also has no life.
That's fair.
As for me, I think I'm already on record for this, but yeah, I write in the mornings. I get up, I have coffee. I might sometimes read the paper if I really want to be depressed. Then I go upstairs and I write for about 3 to 4 hours up until around noon. I come down and I have dinner with my wife.
Left out a step.
What was that?
You get up, have your coffee, you kick your wife out of her house.
Oh, that's right. Actually, I don't. She leaves automatically now. She's just terrified. No, she has learned over the years that if she distracts me, I can't write, and she discovered that she did that. So she has been very gracious in leaving, and by leaving, she just goes next door to her office that she built for herself anyway. So, and then after that, in the evening times, our afternoon, I'll take care of errands, and in the evening times, I will conceptualize, which is I sit down with a notebook and I will think about what I'm going to do the next day, and I'll jot those down, and then we have dinner and all the fun things that people normally do, like watch TV and so on and so forth. But and then next day, I'll take those notes and I'll start writing again.
So in Legends and across Revelations, we see that the end goal for what Turin has been doing is to put the people back together, so to speak. He broke it, he wants to put it back together. So he has done this through various means, and one of those means, I think, and if you can't answer it, it's fine, but mercy is partially Tenkin. And we, with Ezra Haddon, learned a bit more that Tenkin actually it is more or less guaranteed that they at some point, maybe it's some of the Tenkin, crossbred with Gazelle, and what that leaves Mercy as is basically only missing Belgric Lungrian DNA at that point. Is that intentional? Is the combination of all of these races into a single people the intent again?
Interesting. You've actually touched on something extremely important, but not what you think. You're very close, and it is an answer to a question that people have wondered for a very long time. There is something to do with the bloodlines crossing, and when that happens, something else will happen. It doesn't particularly pertain all that much to Mercy, who is you call her Mercedes. You don't know her that well. She exhibits certain aspects, and that has to do with basically what you're talking about. But that has a much larger ramification going into the series, and again, that will something that will hopefully come out soon. Next.
All right. This one came from Reddit. Robin, since you've read the first of Lorien's books, can you tell the difference between Lorien's writing and Michael's?
I can. I can definitely tell the difference. Boy, I'm gonna really hit for this.
It means that she has a new favorite author.
Lorien's. Boy, I'm gonna get in a lot of trouble for this. Lorien has a way with words that, in some ways, surpasses Michael. Michael's writing is very good. It's very clean. It's very interesting. But Lorien's mind works in an amazing way, and it comes across on the page. And so I'm getting ready for the beta read, and all the beta people have to answer a number of questions at each chapter or reading session. They have to rank the chapter on a number of metrics, and then there's a question about what did you like, what did you dislike, what didn't happen that you wished had, what were you surprised by, what were you confused by. And when I was doing this on chapter 1 under my what did I like, there were like all these, I'll call them zingers. There's just all these little things that either her character thought of, or the way her character thought, or what they did. It's just like, oh, I like this, 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 I like this. And there just was a lot more of those than you would typically see in Michael's writing. Like she has a really good way of. It's very hard to articulate. There was a author by the name of Nathan Lowell, who every once in a while he would just make a very small comment, and you'd go, "That is brilliant." Like sometimes authors just do that. There's one time you told me about something you were reading in Stephen King, and he described someone's hair as being like something. I don't remember what it was, and I was like, yeah, that is just like such a great thing, because like as soon as you read it, you know exactly what that hair is like. And she just has a really interesting way of like mentioning things that just make me go, wow, this is so good. There's another author, his name is Nicholas Eames, and he wrote a book called Kings of the Wild. And Sarah and James and I were doing some Kickstarters, and we were listening to someone else's books, who I will not name. And the books are very popular, and they're great, but it just seemed really flat to me. And then every once in a while, in Nicholas Eames' book, he would say something, and I would stop the thing, and I would say, see, this is the difference. This is the difference between Nicholas Eames and that guy. You know, he just knows how to like just insert just these really nice little turns of phrase or observations, or internal thought that just makes you go, wow, that person really knows what they're talking about. And recently I was working with some author and I was trying to explain to them like how to do things. And I always pull up different books as an example. And one of the books I pulled up was John Green's Fault in Their Stars. And the very first opening of Fault in the Stars talks about, my parents think I'm depressed probably because I don't sleep, I spend all day indoors, I do blah 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 blah, and one of the things in the list was I read the same book over and over, and most of the list in that particular set of paragraph are things that all depressed people do. But to read a book over and over is not something that's generally done. And if you know anything about this book, this book that she's talking about is a major aspect to the plot. So that's someone who like is planting something very early on that's going to like come back later, and those are just very advanced writing technique, best way I can say it. And it's taken Mike many years to develop those advanced writing techniques, and I'm just amazed that Lorian has done it with her first book.
So between Lorian and Michael, is there a process you go through when you create a new character or place that you have to name so that it keeps consistent throughout Elan?
Oh, I'm not sure. I know one thing that I fumbled on was creating Frey names. They were sounding very human, and I remember I needed to change that. I think I did pretty good. I don't know. What do you?
Get back up there. Say it again, please.
So when you come up with names for new places or characters, how do you keep it all consistent looking in the world of Elan?
We do not. Early on, when I first started publishing my books, someone really hated that. They complained. They said, "You have Welsh names here, Italian names here, Finnish names here. This makes no sense. How could this person have a first name that is one?" And I'm like going, "You realize none of those places exist in Elan. Those traditions do not exist." So I will randomly just pick what I think fits that subject or that place or that gives it character. Example, if I were going to say, I want a kind of nerdy little guy who may be smart but is uncomfortable in crowds, I might call him Mortimer or Myron. And if I want someone who is a big hunky guy, I might call him Buff or Biff or something like that, right? So you get an impression. These are exaggerations. But you get an impression that when you take a word, it conjures an idea, if for no other reason, out of social, like norms. So when I try to create something, I try to create something that will generate the idea that I'm looking for. And that is it in a nutshell. And the same thing to do with places.
So was there a reason you chose Hadrian and Royce as the two names of your characters?
I chose those names a long time ago. And I chose those because I thought they were really cool names. And they did fit the character. Royce does sound kind of classy, elegant, dark, sleek, and probably nefarious. And then Hadrian is just like this big, as my daughter would say, a golden retriever.
Okay, so this question's for you.
When you thought of Royce, did you think about him in terms of Rolls Royce, or was that just something that you later on you said, "Oh yeah"?
When I was thinking for names, there was popular thing was to like name people after states, like Indiana Jones. I thought that was kind of neat. I'm like, what else could cars have some kind of cool names? And I did probably look at that. And when I created Royce, I also created Mercedes.
When I was first reading Revelations, I looked up the name Royce, and it said "Son of the King." So I thought you had been so freaking clever. like it's all right there.
I'm very lucky sometimes. And she has said that I've been divinely inspired muses or something, and maybe she's right.
Okay, so we have heard in Elan history about the 3 Riva that tried to destroy the world. But when we read about the escapades in Pyre, we never came across anybody specifically that would have fit that. So what happened to those 3 Riva?
Okay. You can assume that when I sent them through Pyre, there have been a lot of people who have died in Elan. Millions, right? How many people did I showcase for you? Do you really think the Riva were going to be making a major? No one likes the Riva. I mean, Farrell hates them. They're not going to be showing their face. They are in Pyre. And you may be seeing why you didn't see them before. Love the quiet little shuffling in between. I don't know how this is going to come off on the show, but this will be fun.
Okay, so I have first a comment about the whole Royce thing and royalty. The thing that really struck me, because I read Legends and then Revelations, was Rex in Latin means king, which is where the French get roi or something like that, ROI, which is where Royce, the name, comes from. I thought that was a neat connection, but now I'm understanding that was accidental.
She lied. No. I lied. You were right. Yeah, it sounds great, though. No, I did. That was accidental, yes.
And so my question goes to...
no one tell anyone about this. This is just between you, me, and the people online, okay?
My question is about maps. So something I found interesting when reading Rise and Fall is how detailed the Nifron or the Nolan map was. And there's so many like little details you only find out in Ezra-Haddon, such as the Ysera's cities, right? Or like where Erebus is. For a while we were like, oh, Erebus must be in the but then we find out it's in the like hole in the map. It's very obvious now that you think about it, and then all the Ysera places are there. The one that really struck me is in Belgrieg. It has all the like places where the tribes or the clans live, and that really only gets put into the text in Drumendor, where they go over the 12 clans. Is there any map secrets similar to that we haven't found yet, or you haven't seen anyone online having discovered?
Not specifically along those lines, but when the cycle comes out, there will be a whole new map. And in it, it will have literally everything there. It's going to be spoilery. This is why I have not released it. I've not used it. She was doing the Chronicle covers, and she wanted a new map for it. She says, oh, you could use your new map. And I'm like, no, because there's actually spoilers on there. But when you get that, you'll be able to see where everything is throughout all the books combined. So you won't be like, well, where was Dalren? And it's all going to be on there. You'll be able to find everything. What you're talking about is obviously you're referencing the fact that there was this hole, and everyone wanted to know where Erebus was. And that, I think pretty much everything is explained. There's no secrets they're hiding, but you will get a lot more information going forward. And there are new places that you have never seen before that will appear on the map because they will be used in later stories.
I will say that maps are really big in fantasy books, and I don't know that Mike has always been so, I want to say, just focused on his maps. Like, his maps are almost like, and there's been a lot of mistakes on the map, like there's, so, I think if you spend too much time looking at the maps, you might like come to conclusions that may not be intentional, because I don't think you really put as much thought into them as what everyone else does.
And I play D&D. We didn't have maps. You just put it on a tabletop. Move them around. Use your imagination.
All right. This next question comes from chat all the way from Sweden. Is there a possibility we might see a short story about Czech Chin's final chase, or is that something you would leave up to fans to create?
Yeah, that's probably not something I'm going to be covering, because that doesn't fall into any major lines that I need to explain. I kind of felt like I did enough of that. I didn't actually need to describe. I don't usually enjoy writing stories of the deaths of people who other people find to be, cherished heroes. So I try not to focus on those too much. And there's no reason to really go into that one. Unless there's a reason that's very important. Not like I don't kill people, I understand this. That is fictional, by the way. Fictional people I kill. Right, honey?
There is that hole in the backyard. Still waiting.
Okay, so I have 2 map questions.
Were you not here for the last one?
These 2 have been driving me nuts. They're hopefully minor, but I really want to know where the Montemorsi vineyard is, because I can't figure that out on the map. And then also, what is the Forgotten Dock?
At this point, if this was not live, Jobble would be putting a map up right now and zooming in on the exact spot I'm going to talk about. Okay, so as described in the several books, I forget which one it actually is described in. The first time probably that Montemorsi is mentioned. It talks about it was brought over by a sea captain over the ocean. It's in the Westerlands. There was a vineyard over there. It's not pinpointed on the map, so that's probably where you can find it. As for the other one, which was the other the Forgotten Dock. The Forgotten Dock is simply a dock that the dwarves used to use when they used to mine Manzant. They don't do it anymore, so their dock is empty.
Nice question to ask. Well,
At least we're keeping a theme.
Well, yeah, I figured I'd ask it now. Is there any location in Elan that you really want to write about that you haven't gotten to write about yet?
No, I mean, most of the ones I picked new locations. As I once said a long time ago, when I was writing the original books, I didn't want any 2 books to be the same, so I chose drastically different settings. And so whenever I would be looking for something, I'm like when I did Winter's Daughter, I needed something. I was looking for like a Transylvania style of Carpathian Mountains kind of deal, and I went, that looks like it could be good. I'll make that here, and I'll describe it that way. So I have blank spaces on the map in case I wanted to do something, and I'm like, gee, I would like to do something in a Nordic freezing region. Where can I put that? Or if I had something really unusual that I wanted to use, I'm like, if I want to use some really crazy place where people hopped around on 1 foot and had 2 eyes, 3 eyes or something, that might be the Westerlands.
Right.
But no, I don't have anything unless I'm thinking of a book. Most everything I create is not created beforehand. It's created to serve a plot or to serve a specific story. And that's how they come into existence.
Yeah.
The hard part is when they cross over and they start getting complicated and there's less and less room, as we have with that nefarious word, which no one here will speak, called the cycle.
Yeah. I noticed we haven't done anything really up north, so if Royce and Hadrian ever want to go on a ski trip, I think that'd be a good spot.
Have like a follow up to that. So it has nothing to do with the map. You think you can trust your own kid?
This is like I don't really have a question, but
So you were just talking about how you don't write anything until it needs to be purpose and everything. My question to Lorian is that also your same approach, or do you do it completely opposite of Michael and you've got things, you've got it all planned up, and I hope that made sense.
I haven't needed to invent any locations for things to happen because everything's happening within the context of places that already exist on the timeline. So, yeah, that hasn't come up. But I would like to explore other regions. I'm interested in what's in the Westerland.
You're totally free to do whatever you want. So in the next few books, you'll be getting less and less of my input. She'll be getting more and more freedom to do. There's someone standing at the mic. Maybe can they see her?
No. So
Yes, dear.
Does he tell you like, no, you can't do that, you can't do this? Like, are there harsh lines?
Yeah.
Is there like, you're like, you come up there and you're like, I'm so excited,
Asking
I
if I've ever
wanna.
threatened you physically.
I'm so excited. I would love to do this. He's like, no, that's mine. You can't have that. Like I have got stuff written for that.
Yes, there's
Okay.
been certain things I've tried to do that just couldn't be done because of what's already been written or what will be written. So, and I don't always know that. So he'll tell me if I go there.
It's usually based on the fact that I have a timeline. Obviously, we know there's things like Glen Morgan. There's certain events that I've already told you have happened. Therefore, we have to make sure that those actually happen when they happen. And she's treading in some of those areas. So I have to make sure that she either addresses that, brings that up, or does not certainly conflict with those. Otherwise, the rest of you will be getting. Well, Eric will be after me.
I'm so sorry. So, Lorian, has there ever been a time
Yes,
where
dear.
Lorian, has there ever been a time where you've written like a very long thing and then he makes you completely scrap it?
Yes.
How much does it hurt?
On a scale of 1 to
It hurts less and less every time.
Which means she's growing numb.
Do you like maps? I'm just kidding. Lorian, what's been the most challenging part of writing in Elan for you?
Well, the most challenging part of writing, it's all challenging because this is the first project I've ever done. So I'm learning as I go along. So every new thing is brand new for me. So we've had to scrap a lot of things, go over and over and over a lot of things just so I can understand structure and how stories work. So, yeah, the entire thing, really.
People are thinking, how did she ever get the chance to write this book? She doesn't know anything. But she knows a lot.
She knows a lot.
And when you hear her talk, it sounds like she doesn't know anything. She's actually incredibly good. Another round of applause for Lorian, please.
Since we're piling on,
Maps or Lorian?
no, Lori. Michael has long said, and we work with a lot of authors over many periods of years, and most people will know that Michael wrote 13 novels that went absolutely nowhere, and they just went to a trunk and they're gone, never to see the light of day. And generally speaking, I think it was Stephen King that said you can treat your first 1 million words as practice, and Malcolm Gladwell said you have to spend 10,000 hours working at something in order to become proficient. And I think both of those numbers are pretty accurate, which is to say it's very unusual for any new writer to hit it out of the park. I mean, it doesn't happen. I mean, you have Brandon Sanderson was working on his 13th book when his 6th book got written, got picked up. It usually takes a lot of books to get the tools you need in order to write a story well and to be able to have an authorial voice that is both unique and also blends well with Michael. Because, I said before, like, Lorian's style, the way she thinks is very different, but also it's very similar to Michael's in many ways. Like, there were certainly times when I would read something that I would say, oh, this is what Michael would have done, or this is very Michael-esque, or this is like him. Now, I've not been involved in the process, so I don't know who did what where. But it's an interesting combination because she can still have her own voice and yet flow seamlessly into Michael. Like if you didn't know any better, you might think that Michael had written it because their two minds work very closely. And when I first started reading it, I almost thought, well, is Lorian trying to mimic Mike? Is she trying to trying to be like him? And then I heard her talk. I think it was during the movie stuff, where you said, when I heard Michael's books, it's like I always thought, well, this sounds like me. This is like what I would write if I wrote something. So their minds do work very much along the same lines. But I gotta tell you, I've read a lot of stuff from a lot of people, and none of you can truly appreciate what an amazing job Lorian has done, because it's writing at a level that a first book I've ever written should not be this good. It just shouldn't be.
Well, this isn't quite her first effort. She did spend 2 years working on her own novel. So you do have several words under your belt.
I made it 60,000 words into my own novel, and then we started this project. But okay, that's fair. Yep. And it helps to have instantaneous feedback.
I have a question about dragons. I recently read the short story Traditions, in which as far as I'm aware, the only living dragon written in Elan. The other one in Legends 4 is dead. He's a Nifril. Do you think we will see any more dragons in the world of Elan, dead or alive? And do you know how long they live? Because that one said he'd been living on that mountain for 3,000 years. And now I have a lot of questions about dragons.
I can see that. You'll be getting more information. A lot more information. In fact, I put so much information in it, I had to back most of it out.
Was a little too.
When Trilos inhabits a body, does he have to use the art?
No. But when you're in a body, then you can use the art. So you couldn't use it until you had a body, so that would be a bit impossible.
So any eternal, artist or not, can inhabit a body?
Correct. However, just a caveat on that, you have to enter a body while it's not dead for too long. And if it's dead, it's probably dead for a reason. And if you don't have the art to fix it, you might be out of luck. Which is why you're almost only going to find artists doing that.
Historically, in any of the books, were there different character perspectives that were particularly challenging to write from? And were any of those more recent characters in Lorian's book?
You start with that.
Greg, can you say that again?
Historically, were there any character perspectives that were particularly hard to write from? And were any of those in your most recent book?
I had trouble with Jerish. Quite a lot of trouble with Jerish. And I think because I was telling someone yesterday that it's easier for me to write characters that have some kind of, they're outgoing or they have a quirk or there's something strange about them. And Jerish is more reserved. And it took me a long time to get into who he was. And we had a lot of discussions about that.
For me, like I said, I mentioned this before, that it's harder for me to write a character who is. It's not really harder, but it's less fun to write a character who's not real smart, not real capable, doesn't think very quickly, and he's somewhat dull. Because I don't have as much fun doing that. When I'm writing someone like Ezra Hodden or Fairlane, who is a very intelligent person, very witty, those are a lot of fun because I get to do what I get to stretch my muscles and like really push myself to write really, really well. They have a larger vocabulary, so on and so forth. But I have to trim. I'll write a great sentence, and no, I can't use it with this character. This character would never think that or say that. So that makes it less fun. I don't have anything that's challenging. Probably the funnest one that I've hit on recently. Does anyone know? Can anyone venture a guess of a character I thought was a lot of fun to write? Niblick. Niblick was a blast.
The other thing I'll talk about relating to point of view is for would-be writers out there, selecting whose point of view you are in for a certain piece of information is very important. It can completely change how something goes. There have been many times, when, well, for instance, a good example is Nifron. Michael's originally he was putting some stuff in Nifron's point of view, and it just didn't work because there were things that he knew that you didn't want to get out, and then there were things that he would naturally think, and if you didn't put that on the page, then you're kind of like being untrue. Yeah, Nessa Dugath is another example. Right. Yeah. Nissa Dugath knew too much, so Stowe had to be created. And in the early version of Cycle Book 1, hold on, it's easy. It's not a problem. Bruh.
Go ahead, talk.
When I first got it, I said to Michael, I said, he had a lot of information he was trying to get out. This is alluding to what you said, where sometimes you had too much information that had to get backed out. And the problem was he didn't have the right point of view. And I said, why don't you try rewriting the scene from this person's point of view, because this person doesn't know what these people know. And when you have it from their point of view, the scene just doesn't work as well. And he changed it and he rewrote it, and it was much better.
And now there are less dragons.
Oh, sure.
I'm just saying.
Blame me. Dragon killer. Robin the dragon killer.
We've had a couple questions about the possibility of a TV or movie adaptation in the chat. Where are you at with that?
Over my dead body.
Please, God, no. Please, God, no.
For those who may not have known, we did have a couple of offers. We had one that we had signed a contract on. They were going to do a series, kind of like a pay-per-view, I don't know, Netflix or something, where they're going to do that for the Raya Revelations, because that was going to be much longer, much more in-depth. It needed more time, more hours. But for the Age of Legend books, those were probably going to be done into movie form. We had a really good producer, and he had a script made, and unfortunately he let me see it because I was the executive producer on it, so I kind of had to say. And I guess the easiest way to say is that we killed that. And we asked him to go back and find someone else to do a better job, and in the process, COVID hit, and time ran out, and it reverted the rights, and we were kind of happy for that overall, because we've also known that the book has bounced around DreamWorks, and a lot of people there really liked it. And the person who we know who was working there said, thank God they never actually offered you anything on that, because lately there's been a lot of really great books that have been destroyed by people making movies and trying to make them into something completely different than what they are.
So I think every author, like, when they're starting out, think, oh, how cool would it be to have a movie with my books? And we certainly were that way. Hollywood is, I often rail about publishing contracts and how horrific they are. If you think a traditional publishing contract is, you should see a Hollywood contract, because it's even more so. There's just no way it can happen. We don't have enough power because Mike doesn't have, a big enough, your guys' fault, doesn't have a big enough fan base where he can have control. And even in cases where you have control, these people are just dealing with lots and lots and lots of money. And there's a lot of people high up that make all kinds of like really bad decisions, and the director doesn't like them, and the producers don't like them, and they have to do it. I mean, if you watch any show on like movies being made, it's really horrific what happens. So we were very fortunate that we went through this very unfortunate series of events, because now we want absolutely nothing to do with it, and it just relieves your mind of even having to like contemplate it.
So the only condition I would ever entertain that concept is if I had the ability to write the script and direct it. Guess what the odds of that are.
Okay, so I had a question for Lorian, but you kind of answered it earlier. I was going to ask, you were planning on developing Jerish further in your books and be kind of less of a dum-dum. But you kind of explained that. So my other question was, on the Discord channel, we have kind of an ongoing argument about a who would win scenario. And so I'm just curious of your guys' opinions. If you had like, Tesh versus Hadrian versus Jerish, who would win overall from a skill perspective in a one-on-one?
I've already answered this question last.
I don't. I mean, I'm.
Whatever you think.
I'm aware of the debate, and I haven't offered any input, and I think I would need to think about it quite a bit. Let's see.
You have to figure out there's going to be a fight.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna give it to Hadrian. That's how I'm gonna write it. One way or the other.
So that's the advantage of being the writer is you can make it be however you want it to be, right? Like your favorite is.
Hello. Okay, so there's a question for Michael.
Hello,
but
every
Robin
time,
is involved.
Every time you come up, you say hello. I like it because everyone knows who's now asking the question because he's.
Okay, so I don't know what year it was, but a few years ago we had a Fairlane Q&A. The footage got lost, so I haven't been able to like double check what was said. But I remember the question was like, "Oh, Kyle is unharmed in Fairlane." That's like a major plot point that he can't be hurt. And I remember on the call, Robin realized, wait, but Nimbus got hurt when Brecton and Hadrian come save him. And I wanted to ask, now that it's been a few years and you have the cycle, like, are you able to explain why Nimbus got a broken nose and he was bloodied up, but then in Fairlane, he's perfectly unharmed. I think they like try to axe him down or sword him down, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, he can't be killed, but he can be injured. It's about as close as I can get to you on that. So obviously, a mortal wound is not going to affect them. I mean, it wouldn't do it. I mean, you should think there might have been a mark or something, but yeah, I fudged that one a little bit. I think. Give me time. I'll work on it.
All right, another question that came from chat. Will we ever learn more about how Jerish and Nebrick eluded Wandelay for all those years, or about the Glenmorgans?
I'll take the second hand. Well, actually, when I think about this, I'll have no control. I'm not planning on doing anything with the Glenmorgans. That would be in that interim period between the book she's doing now and the beginning of the Raya Chronicles. So I will not be involved in that. This person might be, or any other author that comes after her might be. So what do you say?
As far as the first part, yes. It's the 3 books are going to follow Neverick and Jerish and exactly what happened to them after the fall. So we'll get to see what happens with Mandalay.
Can you tell us who and where the 5th bucket man is?
5th bucket man. I believe I said there was 5, and only 4 have been accounted for. And your guess is really as good as mine. There was only 3 until I wrote Drumendor, and then partway through that I went, oh, right, I can add to that list. But no, I have no idea. I didn't know that Cassandra was in that list either. So.
Another question from chat. Was the violence of the Gula inspired by Blythen?
Oh, I see. Yes, I understand what you're trying to say. I didn't think of that. Could be. Now that you bring it up, sure. See, these are things that obviously these are things that I didn't even know about that are already in that book. So I mean, yeah. I love how you guys put stuff together and make me look so much better than I am.
Okay, I guess it's a two-part question, but the second part is only relevant if the first part is yes. Do you watch Ryer Explained? Do you watch Ryer Explained, the YouTube channel?
I've seen many. I don't know if I've seen all.
Okay. Do you have a favorite video?
Of his? Yes.
Yes. What is the favorite video? Sorry, my bad. 3 questions, I guess. What is your favorite video?
The Fairlane promo I thought was really good.
All right, another question from chat. Will there ever be a visual representation of the Orinfar?
There kind of already is, as far as I understand it, although he's one of the few people who didn't come, I believe, to this gathering. On the Discord site, Ryura, if you haven't gone, you probably should. I'm sure Jabba will put this in the comment notes. But there was a whole section devoted to trying to actually do a visual on that in a section called Writing. And in that, they actually broke it down by the poem and by the sounds and by the runes. And they actually built a very plausible visual of that. And I would endorse that. Yes, if I was going to use it, if, you know, if they let me, sure, I would endorse that. That's a really good representation of it. And I had a little bit of input on it, not much, but enough to say, yeah, I like this one and not that one. So yeah, that would, to me, it's great. It's a great visual.
All right, another one from chat. Has Lorianne's experience writing and publishing her first book been pleasurable, and what has she learned?
I mean, I suppose it's been pleasurable. I mean, I really like writing. I really like the whole process. I like writing. I like editing. I like everything about it. And I'm just still amazed that this is something I get to do. It doesn't really seem real. Yeah, so I would say that's pleasurable. Yeah.
At this point, I was thinking she has not seen anything substantial or concrete as a result of all of this other than this event here. So I keep thinking she's thinking, I'm just using her as slave labor, and it's never going to happen. So I'm anxious for her to actually have the book in her hands and see her name on it and have people like you write to her and say, this is great. And it was really nice to see a section appear on the website to like ask Lorian, and for her to have a chance to actually feel like, you know, a movie star and a celebrity.
And so I asked Lorian to make a Goodreads account, and it was nice that very shortly after it was announced who she was in the little rollout, that you got a fan mail or a question or something, or like in the first like 16 minutes after it had come in, someone wrote to you, and so I think that's very, very neat.
Understand, she's writing this forever. No guarantee anything would come of it. Yeah, I mean, there was no chance that she was ever going to necessarily get anywhere. And I told her, it's like Princess Bride. Good night, Wesley. Probably kill you in the morning. It's like guaranteed. Thank you for working hard. This might never go anywhere. And it was nice to finally get to a point where, and I kind of always knew it was going to make it. She didn't know, I knew. And it was nice that she finally got somewhere. And I'm very pleased that she's getting something out of this at some point.
All right, let's address something. So, spoiler. So, some of you were you watched the indie movie thing, but you were not at the premiere of indie movie. And at the ending of the premiere, Adam got up and he was talking about different things. And I was saying to Adam, I says, you know, maybe you want to like recut the ending because there's something that happened after the indie movie got wrapped that he didn't know about. and that is that Lorian and Michael have a 7-figure audio deal for the Out of the Ashes trilogy. That's like astronomical. I mean, like I don't know very many authors who get 7-figure contracts for all 3 rights. To get 7 figures for just 1 right, and it's also very telling because for them to make that offer, they know that it's worth a lot more than that because they need to get their money back. So like we can sit here and say, how good the book is and how valuable the book is, but that's a third party, very businessy oriented organization who really care about dollars and cents being able to say, yes, this is something that we feel very strongly about, has an incredible financial incentive. And considering that for the first year that Michael's first book was out, I think we made $134 over the period of 1 year. I think she's doing a little bit better.
Starting to see a lot more love for her than me.
As well, there's
After 45 years, she's finally no longer interested.
So this is a 2-part question, not quite related. If you had to describe Out of the Ashes in 3 words, what would they be? And also, will Mwandale be in the cycle?
I mean, I'll try the second. I'm going to go ahead and say yes to that. 3 words. Cute. Let's see. Those are my 3.
That's a really tough one. I'm pretty sure you said it has to sum up the book in 3 words. That's really not that hard.
Already did.
If you drop one, you got Out of Ashes. Yeah, that's a tough one. After the Fall is pretty much what you're going to be learning about, right?
I don't know that I can do it in 3 words, but I think what's in many ways this is the most unusual series we've done, because the other series were usually defined by very large distances in timeline between them and entirely new casts of characters between them. And one of the things that I really like about Out of the Ashes is it has some familiar faces. I don't think it's any huge surprise that, there's Garish and Nevrik and Alinea and Ezra Hodden in there. Wandale. Guess that wouldn't be a spoiler. But there's also brand new characters that we've never met before. And as much as I like the way Lorian's been able to take an existing character and keep it, consistent with Mike, which I'm sure that they had a lot of things on, because, he has a certain way that he thinks about his character, and she's got to kind of toe a line there. Her new characters are great, and really good to add them to the pantheon. And likewise, the cycle. I was talking to Jabal yesterday, and I was saying how much I like, as much as I love the existing characters that are in the cycle, it's some of the new characters in the cycle that I think I'm really gravitating towards. So it's good. It's good. It's very nice to have the old and the new, and so what I would say, that it's both fresh and familiar. Well, I'll do it in 2 words.
Familiar.
I have a question that kind of comes out of that. Is there any chance that characters from Out of the Ashes will appear in this cycle? New characters.
Probably not, because I wouldn't want to steal your characters. But I did make a change to those books based off of what you've already written in Out of the Ashes. So you actually altered that, and that will be. Oh no, not in the cycle, in Blything Castle, because certain things are going to line up. You actually made. Oh, that's right. I just remembered what it was. I knew there was something, and my brain just clicked in. Oh yes, that's what that was. There's a major aspect to the climax of Blything Castle that you created and have no idea you did.
All right.
So,
Cool.
and the end of that book, The Great Calamity, is completely different now because of what you did. And thank God you did, because it gave me a way out. Who's Mondelez? I think it would be a little bit disappointing if there are certain characters who are not in there, and I think Mondelez is probably the one that everyone wants to see in a way that is not like, gee, I love that character, but you definitely want to see what happens to Mondelez.
I would not like to see any more of him, but I'm just, I understand. But anyways, the question I have is, so I know this is probably an impossible question. It's kind of to you and Robin, but let's say you are, you're writing the cycle, and you're like, I don't remember how long it is, whatever, but you get fairly far, then you die.
This is a fun question, daughter.
Is this wish fulfillment?
No, this is an inheritance question.
No, it's not. My question to you is: would you trust Lorian to finish it? Kind of like, I forgot what the two writers were. Yeah, Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson.
So your question is: would I rather have Lorian or Robert Jordan or Brandon Sanderson write the book?
No, just Lorian. Do you trust her? If Robin was like you've got I'll say 4 books.
I got the question.
Yeah.
I can think of no one else right now who could do it.
Okay.
It would be a very different book if she wrote it as opposed to me. But no one else really could, because she's the only one I know who can write like I can.
I have a question.
Plan on dying.
No. I mean, would it even be possible? Do you have enough written down in your copious notes and stuff that she would be able to piece together something that would finish it?
I have enough written down for Lorian to curse my name for years as she worked on it. She would be like, why didn't you fill this part out? And what about that missing piece? And there's a lot there that would give her an overall, but it's not detailed. So, because the details I generally create as I write, so she would hate me.
But as far as the tent pole.
Tent poles are there.
So, let's say, since she's got the tent poles, would you be like, Michael, I know you're in heaven or wherever, but the fans really want the rest of the book, so I'm giving it to Lorian. Do you think that you would? Yeah, because he's dead.
I would I would certainly trust Lorian with it. Yes, without question. I have no idea. I have no idea where the cycle is going, so it's impossible for me to say oh yes, it's just a matter of here, Lorian, here's a couple of notebooks, go and do it. So, I don't know what's there and what's not. I don't even know if I can find all the things that I would need to find. I feel so strongly about the cycle and the greatness that is there so far that it would be very terrible if it didn't get out into the world. Michael's always talks about the cycle. Well, if I can get it done and if it's going to be good enough, and I'm like, it's good enough now. Books 1 and 2 are like let's lock these babies up and let's ship them out. But of course, he might have to change stuff as things go on, so we can't do that. I think the question of whether the cycle will be good enough is not even rhetorical at this point. I mean, it's a done deal.
The books she has are good enough. But can I finish the series and make it satisfying? That's what I'm trying to do. If you read Crown Conspiracy and Avum Partha, but I hadn't written Persepliquus, would it be that good? Probably not. If I can't bring the plane down and land it, if I can't stick the landing, it's not going to work. That's what I'm looking for now. Can I do that? And because of A, the bar I'm shooting for, and B, I raised it really high with the first 2 books, it makes it each time harder because, as you know, my mantra is each book gets better than the one before. She's already screaming, never had a book this good ever. Well, gee, I got to now beat that 2 more times, 3 more times.
Okay. But along those lines, the only thing I can say is at the ending of book 2, and it does not end in a cliffhanger. Someone asked me that. It does not end in a cliffhanger. But your mind is certainly ticking away with what can happen next, and it opens up for a lot of possibilities.
And now this concludes our portion of the cycle. Are there any other questions by sane people?
I wouldn't call myself sane, but I'm not going to ask about the cycle.
Wait.
Hello.
Thank you.
Okay, hello. This is a question for Michael and Robin, but possibly Lorian. I'm just not aware if you have children. But do you have a favorite father? No. Do you have a favorite, like, either father or parent moment in one of your books? And then same goes to Robin, and then Lorian, if you would like to answer as well.
I have no children. Favorite parent-child scene. Okay. All right.
You banned all the cycle questions, so.
I really like the story of Hadrian and his dad and the chicken. I always think that's an amazing story. And so I'm just going to nominate that one.
I'm going to break my own rule and say, yes, I have a favorite. You haven't read it yet, but it's coming.
I think my favorite is the fact that Arista's father always brought her hairbrushes, and then Hadrian hands her a hairbrush without even knowing the significance of it. I thought that was really great.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm always ahead of you folks, like years in advance. Certain short stories and books I've written, and it's like, what, you don't know about this? Of course, it hasn't been published yet. But in my mind, I've already got these things done.
I'm not gonna let you get away. So since your favorite is in the future, what is your favorite in the series that people have read?
Let's see. I have to think on that one. Let's see. I had some halfway decent ones. What's your favorite? See? I know, but I'm just saying it's hard to figure out. I'd have to think of them. Hers was a good answer, and I can't think of anything. What parent-children things do I have in my books? Oh, got it. Thank you. I must have just teleported. I don't know. The Theron and Thrace scene where he's waiting for her to wake up and thinks she's not going to. And then, of course, vice versa when he finally dies at the end of Avum Partha. That was one of the more moving scenes in my books. The first one was the Myron and the tree, and then that one I thought was particularly good, where he realizes only after she's presumably dying that he had a really good daughter, but he couldn't do it. That's when it hit him. He was like, oh shit, excuse me. But it's like that. It was that, and it was too late to tell her, and that was a pretty emotionally strong scene.
Is that parent scene that you're referencing just a yes or no? Is it between Royce and Mercy? The one in the cycle?
Send in the dogs.
Okay, so a writing question. Michael, you described your daily writing routine. So I was just curious between the two of you, like, I know people are fast writers, slow writers, but round about how many pages are you able to produce a day?
I don't know. I can tell you I'm extremely slow. Like, I think I've taken a month to write a chapter. Definitely. And he can write a chapter in what, a couple of hours? A couple of days?
It doesn't. I don't think it takes you a month to write a chapter. It just takes you a month to get it by me.
Yeah, okay.
So I mean, she can write faster, but in the early portions, I mean, the first chapter took like 3 months to do, but that was because I'm a mean person and kept making her do it over and over again. There were later ones she just cranked out really quickly, and she's like, "I know this is a rough draft. I know this isn't going to work out," and I'm like, "This is perfect. Move on." So she can write faster. I don't think you've ever really kept track of. Would you ever keep track of your word count, like how many you do a
Per
day?
I don't.
Yeah. As far as I used to do as much as 4,000. Then that dropped to kind of 2,000, where I stayed steady for a very long time. These days, I do far less. I'm probably only averaging somewhere between maybe 14,000, anywhere from 1,000 to 1,400, anywhere between like 1,000 and 2,000. 2,000 is a really good day, and I don't do that too often, but on average, probably about 1,400, 1,500. And I've noticed that like this seems to be consistent with most authors as they get older, their word count drops.
All right, this is another chat. In Theft of Swords, Hadrian and Royce tell Fannin Pickering about a woman who bested Hadrian with a butter churn. If you do another Chronicles book, would you consider including that story?
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
As you know, we have a fan Discord, and you pop in from time to time. I just wanted to ask.
I'm like Galinda and with a whiz.
Do you have, and possibly a question for all three of you, do you have a favorite like Discord moment, or a moment where you're on Discord and you see something it made you laugh, it made you smile, something like that?
I'm pretty sure yours would be when you saw your name.
Yeah. Yeah, the day that Robin announced the book on Discord, and I didn't know it was about to happen. I had no idea. So I found out about it on Discord. Which I actually find out about quite a lot of things on Discord.
As far as I'm concerned, let's see. I had when I first joined the Discord, I said that was a hilarious day because no one believed it was me, and I had to prove myself. And I think people actually quizzing me.
Answer these riddles 3.
I think they were actually quizzing me at one point to try and prove that it was me, and it wasn't until I think I logged out because I wasn't under my name. I was under a different logon. So when I came in as myself, they grudgingly said, maybe. And I thought there's that. Robin, you got me on this. There's something, I think it has to do with Reddit, where you actually have to have a picture to verify.
When you do a Reddit AMA, you're supposed to say, you're supposed to write something like, you know, I am Michael Sullivan. I'm doing an AMA on Reddit. You're supposed to hold it up, take a picture of it, and like post it on your website so they know that it's you, and then they can schedule the AMA or something like that.
And then afterwards, you can pull off this Mission Impossible mask. Yeah, so that was kind of fun, and I had been drinking that night, so we really had a lot of fun. But other than that, there have been there's been many comments in the past that have been enjoyable to see. A lot of times people have found mistakes that I made. I'm like, yeah, okay, so sure, sue me. Other ones were people, like I said, they posted really great quotes and they told me that, and that was really a great way to find out that people really like this stuff. And I've had reviews of my books done before that were I didn't like them, even though they were very positive. They liked my books, and I didn't care for them because they didn't get it. They liked it for reasons they shouldn't have. And I've had negative reviews, trashing my books, but I felt that they understood what I was doing, and they just didn't agree. And I liked those, and they were well written. So it's really special when someone loves my books for the reason I think they should have, because then I realize I connected with them the way I wanted to, and those are really fun. And a lot of times on Discord, people will do that. They'll have little things where they'll say, "I love this part because of this." I'm like, "Yes, great, you got it." So there's a number of those, and I couldn't pull one up specifically, but there's too many to count. That's why I like the Discord people. Are there any here? Any fun?
For me, I think it's just the mere existence that the Discord even existed, because we live a very insular life. You've seen the where we live, which is in the middle of nowhere. We don't get out much. Things happen that we're not aware of, and we've always thought that these books are really good, and we always wished for the fact that there would be people who would love them, but that doesn't always get to you. You don't hear that. So to find a site where people are talking about the books and obviously enjoying the books, and just really getting into them, it's just a joy. It makes you think that, like, I mean, for Michael, writing is not a chore by any stretch of the imagination, but it is work, and to have someone appreciate the work that you've put into something and is very fulfilling. And I just like the stories, so I'm just glad to see a place where other people like the stories too.
It makes us feel that maybe I can make a career out of this. Thank you.
So I just want to add on for the Discord conversation. Unfortunately, Mist, who created the Discord, was unable to join us at this event, but I'd just like to ask everyone to give a round of applause for Mist. Who has, like, almost single-handedly brought us all together for this particular event.
Yes, thank you, Mist. I did miss you not being here. I had actually inquired to see if you were going to, because I did want to meet you.
All right, we had 2 audiobook questions come up in the chat. How did you choose Tim as your narrator? And how do you feel about the graphic audio versions?
Tim was in a basket on our front porch.
So Nimbus came by and said, "There's this guy called Tim, and I really think you need." So we are forever grateful to a company by the name of Recorded Books, who found Tim. A lot of people might think that we somehow chose Tim, or it was our decision to use Tim. It wasn't. Authors do not have such say over such decisions, especially not in this particular case. For those that don't know, the R'yr Revelations that was picked up by Orbit, I think it's pretty safe to say now that they did not have a high level of confidence that the books would do well. And as such, they did not, although they had purchased the audiobook rights, they had no intentions of making an audiobook. So a company came along to them. The company's name was Recorded Books. And they said, "We think that these books will make good audiobooks. We'll give you the princely sum of $2,000 a book. And we would like to buy these audio rights." And Orbit said yes. So it was Recorded Books who picked Tim to be the narrator. Now, for all the other books outside of the R'yr Revelations and the first 2 Chronicles that were done by Orbit, it's always been in our contract that we have final say over the narrator, and it will always be Tim Gerard Reynolds, and unless, of course, Tim was to say no. It's funny because in the indie movie, Bryce O'Connor says something like, I don't think there's an indie author out there that hasn't gotten some help from somebody else. And in some respects, that's not true because we didn't really get any help from anybody, except I think the one thing that we got, and I would trade it for all the other outstretched hands that like raise people up. We had the good fortune to have Recorded Books pick Tim Gerard Reynolds, and it was like the best thing that could have happened to us.
And at the time, Tim was not well known. He was nobody at the time, I think. And he was only partially doing recordings at that time.
Yeah, I think actually I might have this wrong, but I think Tim was a stage actor part-time, and like part-time he was, I mean, he worked at Recorded Books, but not in a audio capacity. Like I don't know exactly what he did. And for all I know, he was emptying the trash cans. I mean, he worked there. He wasn't an audio narrator, and one of the producers there went to a play that Tim had done and said, "Oh, he's pretty good. Maybe we'll throw him on a couple of audiobooks and see how he does." And that started a whole new career for him. Oh, graphic audio. Graphic audio. Couple things I'll say about graphic audio. One is the people who love graphic audio representations. I'm really glad you love them. And I think that they're very well done. And I've talked to the individuals who are involved in them, and I think that they are as dedicated of storytellers as you will find. For me personally, Tim Gerard Reynolds he's my Elan, and for that reason, I really can only, I will fully confess I have not listened to all of the graphic audio books, because when I want a Michael Sullivan book, I want to hear Tim's voice in my ears.
However, it may be the closest you'll ever see to a movie.
Yeah.
It takes place in your mind, in your ears, but it's still probably the closest to it. Yeah. I generally have a problem with them just because when I need to review my books periodically to keep abreast and remind myself what I wrote, and unfortunately those tend to be abridged, so they don't really do that for me. I can't afford to be missing what I actually wrote. So I have a tendency to also rely on Tim as well. Tim is really good.
I also should say that my complaint about abridgment has been heard by the management at Graphic Audio. And for instance, for Drumendor, the original script I got, which was abbreviated, I asked for it to be non-abridged, and they went back and corrected a lot of that.
You listen?
No, not to.
As an author, have you ever had readers misinterpret what you wrote?
Well, I've had a lot of people who have not gotten what I wrote. They didn't realize it. I mean, famously to this day, people still have no idea what the white feather is at the end. That's just like, really? Misinterpreted. Do you know of anything that?
Oh yeah.
Oh, go ahead. You'll remind me.
A very famous outlet that does reviews said, Michael J. Sullivan is not a subtle writer. And went on to say, and the romance between Royce and Hadrian was tacked on. Okay, well, that's one of them. The other thing was the other thing that comes to mind is, I don't know where these things arise, but the thought that somehow I, puppet master of Michael, is able to influence his work to such a degree that Michael became a ultra feminista and in writing Legends of the First Empire, and it was all because somehow I made him do it.
As far as someone just not misinterpreting what I said, I don't think that's been the case. I think most people understand what I've written. People take things they like or dislike differently. But for the most part, I think most people understood what I was saying. They didn't completely misinterpret it. No, okay, come on. Jobble's behind the screen and he's laughing. Is it because there's an upcoming question?
Someone just put in the chat a quote: "MJS is not a subtle writer, and that's why we love him."
I think I have an example. So when we were at Dragonsteel, I had a person come up to the booth, and they said, what's Michael's opinion on the church? I said, not very religious at all. I don't know how you. And I'm like, what do you think is his opinion? He's like, I think he's very religious, and I think he's for the church. I'm like, what book were you reading that gave you that impression? I think he said Nolan. So I think that's a misinterpretation of the work.
I think the question was, did anyone read something that I wrote and not understand it correctly? But sure, it's interesting the fact that, okay, so there's another book I wrote, which was Hollow World. And in that one, people literally, this person would say, I am one thing, where this person would say, I'm the exact opposite. So in Rhaenyra, there are certain things like that. People come away thinking, oh, me personally, I am this, or I hold these views. And do not ever make that mistake with any author. You never know what their actual views are, because it's like looking at an actor playing a role and going, oh yeah, he's actually that person. I mean, we all know that, that Harry Potter really is a wizard. I mean, he might be completely different than that character. So don't ever make that mistake in assuming that. But overall, I don't know that there was anything that was really misinterpreted. But yes, people take away from my books what they often want or need, which is always good.
Hello. So like clockwork, I swear on the Reddit, I'll see a post every 3-4 months where someone will say, oh my gosh, I just finished Raya Revelations. It was amazing, yada, yada, yada. Does anyone have any series recommendations that is similar, that feels the same, that gives the same energy? And I wanted to ask, I guess, the three of you, are there any books out there that you feel like Raya fans should also read from a different author, or like, oh, it's a similar feeling, energy, something like that? Like, what would you recommend?
So the immediate one that comes to mind, way back in the day, I'm famously was known to get Scott Lynch's book, The Gentleman Bastard, in particular the Lies of La Clamora. And the reason why I mentioned that book is because you have two friends. You have Lamora and I can't remember his name. Anyways, I'm old. But anyways, it's got kind of a buddy thing. It's funny. It's a little bit rompy. I think that's a book that's very similar, and I would certainly recommend it. Rachel Aaron wrote a book called The Legend of Eli Monpress, which is very good and has some similarities. This is going to sound odd because it really isn't the same, but I find some things in both Kings of the Wild and Orconomics, just because there are so few books with humor in them. And Michael's book has a great deal of humor, and those other two books also have humor in them. So those come to mind. And then, didn't you say that Sebastian de Castell's most recent book was the Magnificent Seven, or whatever it was?
I understand. Malevolent Seven.
Malevolent
Yes.
Seven.
Yeah, I endorsed that book. That was a good book. Do you have?
No, I mean, this is an eternal quest for me too. I'm always trying to find something that scratches that itch, and I do like a lot of authors, but I haven't found anything to recommend that hits that specific spot.
As for me, the problem there was the reason why I wrote the books I wrote is because I couldn't find anything similar to my books, and so I decided to create them. And I had hoped that one day someone would kind of mimic me and do something similar that I could enjoy to read. It really hasn't happened yet. So I mean, there are many good books out there. Don't get me wrong. It just none of them really strike me as being that much like mine. Now there is a author who I have been told is like mine, which is Michael Weishart, which I haven't read, but I have heard that his books are similar to mine. I don't know.
There's been a rumor going around that Michael Weishart's books are actually pen names of Michael J. Sullivan, and that which is not true. Michael Weishart is an author in his own right. He's very prolific. He's an indie author. A lot of people like his stuff. I don't know where that particular thing came up from. But the other thing I would say, like if someone says, recommend me another book, and this is going to sound like really stupid, but I'm going to say it anyways. If the thing they just read is Legends, recommend to them Rhaenyra. And if the things they just read was Rhaenyra, recommend to them Legends. And I say that not because I want more money, because we're fine. We don't need that. But what I really want is I want people to read the cycle. I really want people to read the cycle because it'll be just that good. And really, anyone who wants to or is even thinking about considering the cycle, they should not read it unless they have read everything that's come before it, which is why the cycle will have such an extremely strong but very passionate audience that will be greatly rewarded for all the books they've read before.
Question for all three of you, if you don't mind. So you talked about liking the humor in some of the more recent fantasy books, Robin, and a sense of humor in some of those books is kind of a newfound thing, especially if you compare it to a lot of epic fantasy from the 90s. I'd like to ask for all three of you, what would you like to see more of in fantasy literature going forward from authors or from demands from readers, and maybe why?
It's a very difficult question because what's popular or what is happening is not necessarily what I enjoy. Like right now, like the romantasy aspect is really hot, and a lot of people are making a lot of money on that. And lit RPG is very hot, and a lot of people are writing that. As an author advocate, I love it. I love the fact that there are authors that traditional publishing would generally never look at all, and they're making money and they're living their dreams as an author. Their stuff may not appeal to me directly because Michael has spoiled me, and the books that I like to read the most are a Michael J. Sullivan book, so that's what I'm going to devote my time to. But I'm really, really glad that there's a lot more of that. If I could ask for one thing that I would like a little bit less of to you writers out there who are thinking about writing books, don't spend so much time thinking about your world or your magic system, or I came up with this real good race, or I got this really good idea of like some political system. I don't care about that. I want characters. I want characters that are put in situations and plots that propel them, and I want to feel invested in those characters, and I want to cheer for them when they succeed, and I want to cry for them when they die, and I want to be moved by the story, the cool languages you create, and the cool maps that you make, and all the what I'll call place setting stuff. I think there are too many authors that spend way too much time focusing on those aspects, and for me, that's it. It just doesn't do it for me.
When I started writing Revelations, I was trying to figure out how to write a really good book. And this was not for publication. I was doing it for my own personal interest. But what I thought I was going to do is like, how do I know how to write a good book? So I just thought back on all the books that I'd ever read. And I thought, I listed like my top 5, and I tried to figure out what is a commonality between those books. And I came up with 3. One was characters that I wished I knew in real life who were my friends. Another was a place that I would like to go to and either live in or visit extensively. And the third was a good story. And so when I wrote my books, that's what I was looking to find. And I would hope to find that in the future. Right now, it seems there's a popularity of a tendency for writers to write dark, horrible places, and I don't want to go there. I don't want to live in that world. I don't want to go to some place like, Winterfell or something like that. These are miserable places. I don't want to visit them. I want to go to the Shire was wonderful. And yes, there is a Mordor, but there's also a Shire that you want to see defended. I want good people that I can root for. If I don't have that, what's the point of reading it? And I want a story that is simple enough and easy for us to understand and will eventually move you emotionally. Those are the things I'm looking for in books. And that's what I would like to see happen. I'm not seeing it yet, but I think I'm starting to see a little bit more of I'm not into grimdark quite so much now. We're going to go into the things that she was just talking about, and maybe it'll go into something after that as well.
I am not trying to steal from Robin, I promise. But for me, it's characters too, because that's why I have such trouble finding books that I enjoy reading. I need to relate to the character. I need to care about them, and not just one character, like plenty of them. And I feel like a lot of books aren't focusing on characters as much as creating cool stuff, and that's what I'd like to see more of.
When we were working in Novel House, they asked me a question, and one of the questions was, actually Lorian asked me, she says, how do you write such great characters? So I had all the members of Novel House tell me who their favorite characters was and why. And so they all came up with it, and I actually don't remember the other ones, but Lorian's was yours. I said, yes. I said, but besides mine. I went, no, yours. I'm like, really? She says, yes. So, but everyone did list them, and I asked, why do they like them? And the answer was very simple, that it boiled down. We didn't actually have the question, but through the conversation, we realized that everyone liked them because they could relate to that person as if they were kind of like them. And when you find yourself in a character somewhere, or you find someone you know in a character somewhere, it makes it come alive and it makes it real. So, you're right.
All right, we had another question from chat. This is a question for Lorian to be answered by Robin. When you have your first Kickstarter, will there be special editions to match the other books of Elan?
There certainly will be special editions. Sarah has already started working on a prototype that will allow us to have both Lorian's and Michael's name on it. I'm sorry, Sarah, I've not opened the file yet. I've been busy. I haven't looked at it. So yes, there certainly will be special editions. Also, I have reached out to Mark Simonetti for doing the artwork for the cover for the dust jacket and the hardcovers for that. So we will have that. So yeah, I mean, at this stage of the game, it's really interesting because when Mike got published and when he was in trade paperback and so forth, like special editions were not even on my radar. It wasn't a thing. I mean, it wasn't until Brandon Sanderson did a special edition of, I believe it was Elantris, that I went, oh, that's such a sexy looking book. It's so pretty. I like the gold foil. I like the hub spine. I like this, that. And now I'm somewhat obsessed by them. So I can't imagine that we will ever produce a book that it doesn't have a pretty, fancy deluxe edition for it.
I have a follow-up for that for Sarah. Will the cover of Lorian's book also tell a story like the ones for Rayura Revelations do?
As far as I know, we're just the deluxe versions are going to be matching the deluxe versions that are for the recent Kickstarter and the most recent Kickstarters. So they're behind you. I don't. So it's just because of the camera.
Give it to me.
If you bring them down, you could.
Kind of hard to see, but these are the versions, and my mother wanted them to look like a encyclopedia, so she wants them all to look the spines to be all the same. So for the books that he is talking about is the is the Ryer Revelations limited editions that we did, like I think like 3 years ago,
Right.
and that was for a very limited run because we and so that I would like to say that the versions that you just saw here, I would actually just like to call them the deluxe versions, while the versions that you got, whether you got the Ezra Hoddens, the Fairlane, and the Nolan that have the picture on it,
Yeah.
I would call those the limited editions because
Yeah.
those will be out of print at some point. But these versions, I think, at
But
some
why aren't you going to do ones that tell a story and that are almost impossible to decipher?
Because mom says the amount of work that Sarah put into the Raya Revelations covers is amazing, and it is really, really cool. But it also takes an exceedingly long period of time.
Well, we
And
redid them
maybe
multiple
in the
times.
future,
What?
Jabba will do an interview where you explain in detail those covers.
Yes, I will state on record that I will work with Jovel to do a play-by-play of the covers. I'll give the spiel of
explain cover.
yeah.
I hear explain cover, yes.
But
They're beautiful, but they take a really long time, and what I really want is I have this envisionment of like all the books on the shelves and just like them all lined up and having all the spines look the same, and I don't know, there's just something about that really appeals to me. A lot of people who got Drumendor were very confused because Drumendor said 2/5, and they didn't realize what that was, and that was because it's the second series, the 5th book in the series, and I want to have 1 through 6, and I want to have 2 through 8, and then I want to have 3 through 6, and then I want to have 4 through 3, and so that's what I want to see.
I'm not saying this because I don't want more work, but I could see, like, it would seem weird that we would have this like deluxe version while we have the Ezra and the Nolan, the Fairlane that have like the figures on it, and then you've got the Ryer that have the figures on it. So not that I want to do one for the Legend series or the the other series, but I kind of do think just to keep it consistent.
You're right.
That we might have to do that. And
Good
I just thought about that just now, and
yes.
But here's the thing: if we did do it, it would be much faster because when we first did the Raya Revelations, we did multiple color. We thought we were gonna have much different colors. It was our first time doing it.
Yes.
We didn't know how the stamps were gonna work.
Right.
Like I was originally supposed to have 5 colors, but then it got trimmed down to 2.
Yeah.
Doing the leather.
Yeah.
So the first time we did it, it did take a very long time,
It
but
won't take as long.
it will definitely not take as much time. But I would have to reread the books.
Right. Yeah. And we learn more each time we go through the process. It's
And Matt, don't call on her again. It took forever. We have to be done at some point. He's running out of memory.
It took forever to get the explanation of the 3 covers the other day, so I was almost expecting that.
Hello. I believe it was in the making of the Death of Dulgath. You mentioned that, Michael. You mentioned that you have like music that you listen to while you write, and I don't know if that necessarily means that like this soundtrack would be like, let's say, God forbid, there is a movie of Raya Revelations. Would that be like that would be the soundtrack of Raya Revelations? But would you ever publicly release like your writing soundtrack that you use?
It's cats. No. Actually, I have already. It's not a score. It's literally a series of songs, which I released out on Spotify, I don't know, 8-10 years ago. It's been there. I don't know if it's still there. Who knows? Yeah. Yeah, so those are already out there. And I actually have considered playing a playlist here during the conventions and have you try and I could explain why each of the songs were what they were, and then I could play some of the songs that have now inspired the cycle and have you try and guess. But no, I mean, like I've already done that, and I've actually put the playlist on the Discord site before for anyone who wanted to look at it. It's probably still there.
All right. We are past 2 hours, so we'll start to wrap this up. We have one question from chat. Who would you rather have as a dad, Royce or Hadrian?
Really? That's a question?
Lottie wants to know.
Yeah, I don't think there's a sane person who really wants Royce as a father, do you think?
She loves Royce, though. You wouldn't want to be his child. Go.
They're whispering in the background.
I saw, and it's about the indie author movie. Somebody wanted to know more information about the indie author movie.
The indie author movie. So, a filmmaker by the name of Adam Grady came to us many moons ago and said, I think what you've done is fascinating, and I think that I would like to make a documentary about you and your life and how you became an author. And I said, Adam, you're crazy. Nobody would want that. And many people come to us with harebrained things. They're like, "Well, I want to make a video game about your stuff. I want to make a movie about your stuff. I want to make merch about your stuff." And they all go away. But Adam just kept coming back, time and time and time again. And it became very serious to me that he was very passionate about this idea he had in his head. And finally I said, Adam, I don't think it makes any sense for you to do a documentary about us. But what you might be able to do is a documentary on the indie movement. And if you really are serious and you want to do it, then, I will put you in touch with some of my friends who are indie authors, and you can talk to some other indie authors, and you can create a movie. So a couple years ago, maybe as many as at least 2, maybe 3 years ago, there was a Kickstarter for Indie Author the Movie. And Adam raised some funds. He came out here. He filmed us. He filmed other indie authors, including Andy Weir, Will White, Travis Baldry, Bryce O'Connor, M.L. Wang, A.C. Cobble, a bunch of other people. And he made this very, very amazing movie about indie authors and what it takes to be an indie author and why we're indie authors and why not publishing and so forth. And it premiered about a week ago here in Luray. There was a big premiere party. We had people from all over the country come, and we're really pleased with how it came out. The movie right now is submitted to a number of film festivals. The hope is that through the film festivals, it'll be picked up by a film festival and then shown to some distribution company who might consider distributing it to something like a Netflix or, other, or PBS or something of that nature. Until that happens, we really can't do a lot for selling it, because if it's already been, marketed out in the world, then no distributor would be interested in it. But you can become a late backer to it. And I'm sure Java will put in the show notes a link where you can late back to that. At this point, the only thing you'd be able to get is the digital version of the movies, because the other reward levels were to come to the premiere, which has happened, and to get a DVD or a Blu-ray made of it. But he only printed up as many of those as the Kickstarter wanted, so you can't get those. But you can get a version of the digital.
And also, Adam put a lot of his own money into this because the Kickstarter did not cover the whole thing. So if you want to support him, if you like the movie, or if you want to support other indie authors, particularly those who are in it, who could benefit from some exposure, please do tell other people about it and see if you can get, at some point, it'll go on sale somewhere, and hopefully you can help him get into the black on this.
Yeah, well, the link, the late backing that I was talking about would allow them to purchase copies now, and would not violate, the film festival thing, because all you are is a late backer to the Kickstarter, and we really would like Adam to get in the black.
would just like to say that at the end of Indie Author, there is a behind the scenes of Elan. So if that entices you to watch the movie, see the movie, if you're a big fan, then that would just be something that could entice you more to see it.
Yeah, what Sarah's actually talking about is something called Elan Unveiled. So there's actually two movies. There's Indie Author, the movie, which is a 90-minute documentary starring everyone. And then there's Elan Unveiled, which is a 60 minutes. Was that how long it was? Yeah. I haven't seen it yet. And a 60-minute interview where I did with Michael, where I asked him a whole bunch of spoilerish questions, and he answered them.
And many of the people here have seen that movie, just saw it yesterday. So just asking you, was there anything in there that you felt was worth watching that segment over? By a round of applause, can you tell me how many liked that? Okay. So if you are interested in seeing that, obviously there is stuff in there that you might want to know about.
All right. I think that pretty much wraps up our Elan panel discussion. Thank you so much, Robin, Michael, and Lorian. And thank you, everyone, for your questions. And thanks for joining in the live stream.